So this is still part 2, but this is video number 2 of part 2. So we'll just keep going. This is also presented in Psalms 110, 1-4, which Jesus presented to show that Messiah was prior to David, and Revelation 5 refers to the root of David. The verse cannot be more specific. This is the reason as to why these verses cannot be a description of King Hezekiah, who was sick and crying out to God like a big baby to restore his health. By God restoring his health, his son Manasseh, who was one of the evilest kings in the history of Israel, was born. King Hezekiah, while being a descendant of the throne of David, does not fit the specifications of the prophecy. Since the Messiah had to proceed from days of everlasting and would have to possess everlasting righteousness, which would be ushered in, as stated in Daniel 9's 70-week prophecy. Tovia Singer goes into a bunch of historical acrobatics, trying to move Christians away from the historic interpretation of this prophecy. Yet he runs into major problems, since he assumes that the decree of Cyrus is the starting point, and the excellent scholars have pointed out that Cyrus's decree is way too early for the arrival of the Messiah, since there is no record of eternal righteousness being ushered into earth history around 50 BC, if one reckons the 490-year period from the commencement of Cyrus' decree. In his interpretation, Tovia presents the arrival of Cyrus as fulfilling Daniel 9:25. He then assumes that it was the priesthood that was cut off in verse 26, and goes with the flow of the story, assuming that the prince that shall come is in reference to the Romans. 70 weeks are decreed upon thy people and upon thy holy city, to finish transgression, to make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring in everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and discern that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the anointed one, the prince, shall be 7 weeks, and 62 weeks. It shall be built again with street and moat, even in troublous times. And after the 62 weeks shall the anointed one be cut off, and shall have nothing. And the people of the prince that shall come. So it doesn't change princes here. The anointed one, the prince, and the people of the prince that shall come, shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with a flood, and even unto the end shall be war, desolations are determined. And he shall make a firm covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and upon the wing of abominations shall come one that maketh desolate, and even unto the full end, and that determined shall wrath be poured out upon the desolate. And later, Tovia does more acrobatics in reference to the priesthood being cut off, as fulfillment of the verse, which states that after 62 weeks, an anointed one is cut off. He fails to realize that the anointed one was anointed at baptism, and after 3.5 years, he died on the cross, and 3.5 years later, years from the cross, Tovia's argument that the fact that Joseph was Jesus' father by adoption did not make Jesus an heir to the line of Judah. What Tovia forgets is the fact that Genesis 3:15 states that it's the seed of the woman, and never is the man mentioned as being the Messiah's father. Burden of Rabbinic Judaism to disprove the statement of Genesis 3:15. It is the burden of Rabbinic Judaism to disprove the statement of Genesis 3:15 in relation to the statement of the seed of the woman, bruising the head of the serpent, and the serpent biting his heel. It is the general consensus of the Christian world that Isaiah 53 was the fulfillment of Genesis 3:15. For the following reason being that the throne of God on planet Earth, being the Davidic throne, had to have a messianic figure who would possess everlasting righteousness, meaning that he would have to have existed prior to King David. This is the same matter that Jesus brought out in Mark 12. When Tovia Singer was asked to explain his position on the theology of the two powers in his Nashville debate, he tried to fog the issue of the matter and spoke of the author as being an unbeliever who believed that the book of Isaiah was written by different authors and was, I may get this wrong, pseudepigrapha, a term whose meaning is falsely attributed works. Yet this wasn't the issue. The issue was whether there was a case for a belief in two powers in the Old Testament, and in particular during the 2nd century before Christ and around the time of Christ. In that particular debate, Mr. Singer avoided the issue, and the scholar that he debated was aware of Tovia fogging the issue, avoiding the discussion. The author in question, whose name was Alan Siegel, a Jewish scholar, and advocated that there was reason to believe that in the Old Testament there was a case for a theology which consisted of two powers. Yet Tovia refused to address this issue, and instead he utilizes the fact that God referred to Moses as being an Elohim. Tovia quotes Psalms 82, which Jesus quoted in the New Testament to say that ye are gods. The fact is that while this is true, what is also true is that the angel of the Lord in Exodus 3, being the angel or spokesman of God, goes on to tell Moses that he is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I can go on and on. Yet the one power theology of Tovia, or any other of the one God advocates out there, such as the followers of Islam, refuse to properly explain this matter. Mark 12. Whereas in Mark 12, there was a specific time when a scribe spoke to Jesus about loving the one God, and that Jesus was correct in his teaching that we should love the Father with all our hearts and soul and strength. Jesus' reply was that he was not far from the kingdom of God. The interesting thing here was that Jesus never stated that this individual had arrived at the kingdom of God. He simply stated, you are not far from the kingdom of God. Most people have not caught on to what Jesus later stated in reference to what the first individual stated. This matter is addressed in Mark 12. And one of the scribes came and heard them questioning together, and knowing that he had answered them well, asked him, what commandment is the first of all? Jesus answered, first is, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. The second is this, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these. And the scribe said unto him, of a truth, teacher, thou hast well said that he is one, and there is none other but he. And to love him with all the heart, with all the understanding, with all the strength, and to love his neighbors as himself, is much more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. And when Jesus saw that he had answered discreetly, He said unto him, Thou art not far from the kingdom of God. And no man after that durst ask him any question. Jesus' response in Mark 12, he now quotes the two powers, Psalms 110, 1-4. And Jesus answered and said, as he taught the temple, How say the scribes that Christ is the son of David? David himself said in the Holy Spirit, The Lord said unto my Lord, Sit thou on my right hand, till I make thine enemies the footstool of thy feet. David himself calleth him Lord. Whence is he his son? And the common people heard him gladly. The question to be asked is the following. Did David believe there were two divine Hashems, Elohim, which means plural? The answer has to be yes, because David called the Messiah his Lord. And later it is stated in Psalms 110, 1-4, that David's Lord is of the order of Melchizedek. So if Psalms 110 speaks of David's Lord sitting at the other Lord's right hand, it could be none other than Jesus confirming the teaching of the two powers, one sitting at the right hand of the other and being called Lord by David. Same thing in John 1:1 in the New Testament, where it states, In beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, which equals alongside God, and was God. These are the very same two powers which are mentioned in Genesis 1:26, where it is stated, And God's, Elohim, said, Let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. In the original Hebrew, the word for God is Elohim, which is plural and translates as gods. The gods said, Let us make. The Shema. In the great declaration known as the Shema, Deuteronomy 6:4, the word used in the Orthodox Jewish Bible for one is echad, which implies a duality which equals one and not a single individual, which would be Yechid. At the Tower of Babel, the rebellious multitude stated, Let us be one. That implied rebellion against the two powers, who then declared the following. And Yahweh said, Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language, and this is what they begin to do. And now nothing will be withholden from them which they purpose to do. Genesis 11:6 in the Orthodox Hebrew Bible uses the word echad for one. The very same word used to describe the Elohim, Deuteronomy 6:4. Oneness in duality. Now we come to the Shema of the New Testament. This same duality translates to what I would refer to as the Shema of the New Testament, which is John 1:1. In beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Granted that this beginning was not the beginning of Genesis 1:26. It goes further back in time prior to the creation of anything that ever was. Yet both of these beginnings testify that there is a duality of echad in the nature of the creators, who are two individual singular beings that possess their own physicality in space and time, and at the same time are independent as singular being. Yet they are also one. Echad, oneness and duality. Case in point, the vision of Ezekiel 1. Ezekiel is witness to a vision of the God of Israel, which reveals himself as a singular being riding on the top of the cherubim, angelic craft. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone, and upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man upon it above. And I saw, as it were, glowing metal, as the appearance of fire within it round about, from the appearance of his loins and upward, and from the appearance of his loins and downward. I saw, as it were, the appearance of fire, and there was brightness round about him, as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain. So was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of Yahweh. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spake. Then in Exodus 20:21, both are speaking, or one is representing the other. Behold, I send an angel before thee to keep thee by the way, and to bring thee into the place which I have prepared. Take ye heed before him, and hearken unto his voice. Provoke him not, for he will not pardon your transgression, for my name is in him. Isaiah 44:6 presents the specific name of both of them. Thus saith Yahweh, King of Israel, and his Redeemer, Yahweh of hosts, I am the first, I am the last, and besides me there is no God. Keeping in mind that in the Hebrew plurality is expressed by way of the word Elohim, gods. There's your Orthodox Jewish Bible. Thus saith Hashem, Melech, Yisrael, and his goal, Hashem. I'm not going to say this right. Savas, I am the Rishon, and I am the Akaron, and apart from me there is no Elohim. Some will argue that the verse is speaking about one God who is both King of Israel and Redeemer of Israel, but the word God, which is Elohim, expresses the plurality of these two statements, King of Israel and his Redeemer, Yahweh of hosts, meaning there is no other Elohim, which translates as gods, meaning there is no other gods. Burden of proof. Fact is that the burden of proof rests on Tovia Singer, since from the commencement of Genesis 1:26, the two powers are already present in the creation of man. Genesis 1:26 has to be translated in plural form and would have to be Elohim. The Jewish claim of inherent righteousness and the present teaching of no sacrifices needed. Fact is that Adam, the father of the human race, lost all of his righteousness and became captive of Satan. And when he tried to hide his nakedness with fig leaves, Hashem told him and Eve to remove the fig leaves and put on the animal skins. This is the missing dimension of present-day rabbinic Judaism. They believe that man can be righteous apart from sacrifices. Yet this was never the case in Old Testament times, when the first hint of sacrifice is presented in the animal skins that were placed upon Adam and Eve. Later, God instructed Moses, right, to build a sanctuary so that God could dwell with his people. Yet at the same time, there was the sacrificial system pointing to the fall of Adam and how this has impacted the human race. So while the sacrifices themselves didn't have power to forgive sin, they were, in fact, an object lesson in reference to the arrival of the Messiah and the role that he would play, reference to the matter of the cleansing of the people. But how, one might ask? Law states in Leviticus that there can be no forgiveness of sin without the shedding of blood. The rabbinics forgot about this matter, and they also forgot about the book of Job in reference to Job, who possessed a perfect testimony of which the devil was aware of. Even though Job never cursed God, he did become self-righteous. And by the time we reach the end of the book, Job, he repented of his sin in sackcloth and ashes after witnessing the eternal righteousness of Hashem, whom he could never duplicate, since we are dealing with an eternally righteous being, which is the Lamb slain from before the foundation of the world, spoken of in Revelation 13:8. The fallacy of present-day rabbinic Judaism lays in the fact that they fail to realize that mankind, both Jew and Greek, have no inherent righteousness ever since the fall of Adam, and in order to probably put Judaism back on track, lays in the recognition of the fulfillment of Genesis 3:15 as depicted in Isaiah 53. Since it is not a corporate concept of a servant nation which paid the price for our salvation. Genesis 3:15 is clear. The seed of the woman will bruise the head of the serpent, and in turn the serpent would bite his heel. So we are speaking personal pronouns such as he and his in reference to Genesis 3:15. So the question to be asked is, how does Judaism explain the bruising of the head of the serpent? Why the serpent, and what did it do in Eden? Why was Adam kicked out of the garden? Why was an angel with a flaming sword placed at the entrance to the garden? Why a flood? And as far as is to be known, no one has ever returned to Eden. The question is, will rabbinic Judaism, as well as Kabbalistic mysticism, fulfill this role? How can that be, considering the fact that no one on planet Earth is eternally righteous since the fall of Adam? Even the book of Job states that Hashem doesn't put trust in his angels who committed folly, and that the heavens are not pure in his sight. And much more men who live in houses of mud. It would take an eternally righteous individual to ransom our planet, and Job, who was probably the most righteous man that ever lived apart from Jesus Christ, didn't qualify and had to repent. Where is this Messiah in the Old Testament? Stay tuned for Isaiah 2. And this will be our next video. Stay tuned.